Okay, ready to dive into something fascinating.
Always.
So we all want to make positive changes, right?
Of course, yeah.
But sometimes the advice we hear is just overwhelming.
Hmm.
Like, where do we even start? Today, we're exploring something that might shift your whole perspective.
Ooh, I like that.
It's a deep dive into a conversation between Jay Shetty and Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I'm familiar with his work.
He's both a neuroscientist and a meditation expert.
So we know it's going to be good. A powerful combination.
Exactly.
And what strikes me about their approach is it's not just about positive thinking.
What?
It's deeper than that. They're looking at how our thoughts, our emotions, even our actions create real changes.
Tangible changes.
Yes, in our
Yeah.
bodies and our lives. We're working with excerpts from their conversation on the JayShettyPodcast.
Okay.
And I think what they talk about is really insightful.
Yeah, I love how they start by acknowledging all those challenges everyone faced during the pandemic.
Right.
But then Dr. Dispenza talks about how he just refused to be a victim of circumstance.
That's huge. It's such an important point, I think,
For sure.
because it really sets the stage for their whole message. We have so much more power over our inner world than we realize.
Absolutely.
And that power, it's not some mystical thing.
Yeah.
It's rooted in science. Dispenza explains how our thoughts actually trigger chemical and hormonal reactions in our bodies.
Wow.
Yeah, and he even uses the example of like vividly remembering a stressful event
Okay.
and how that can cause your body to react as if it's happening all over again.
That's wild. So our
Right.
bodies can't tell the difference between a memory and reality.
Exactly. And Dispenza points out that if we keep replaying those stressful thoughts and memories over and over,
Yeah.
it's like we're constantly triggering that same negative cascade of chemicals.
Oh, wow.
And over time, this can actually contribute to disease. It's a powerful reminder that our mental and emotional states have a real impact on our physical well-being.
For sure. It makes you think about all those times I've replayed an argument in my head or worried about something that might never even happen.
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
But how do we break out of those negative thought loops?
Well, Dispenza suggests meditation is a powerful tool,
Okay.
but not in the way we typically think about it.
Interesting.
He says it's not about emptying your mind or achieving some blissful state. It's about becoming aware of your thoughts,
Okay.
even the distracting ones. He actually says the struggle is the practice.
I like that.
So the more we can observe our thoughts without judgment,
Right.
the more we can start to detach from them and create space for new, more positive patterns to emerge.
Makes sense. And Dispenza has seen some pretty incredible things happen in his workshops, right?
Yes.
He talks about people experiencing spontaneous healings.
Yeah.
Even people who were blind or paralyzed regaining their ability.
Right. And those stories are certainly remarkable, but I don't think they're meant to be taken as guarantees.
Of course.
What's important is they point to a possibility.
Absolutely.
If our minds can have this kind of impact on our bodies, it really challenges us to think differently about what we're capable of.
So true. So if we want to start applying these ideas, where do we even begin?
Well, Dispenza suggests a really simple but powerful shift in perspective. Instead of seeing problems as roadblocks,
Right.
he encourages us to view them as challenges, as opportunities for growth.
Okay.
Instead of asking, why me, ask, what can I learn from this? It's about shifting from a mindset of blame and victimhood
Yeah.
to one of empowerment and responsibility.
So it's not about ignoring our problems
No.
or pretending they don't exist.
Exactly.
It's about approaching them with a different attitude,
Yeah.
a different lens.
And that leads to another fascinating point Dispenza makes. Even clinging to past experiences, even the good ones,
Yeah.
can actually prevent us from having new, potentially even more amazing experiences. It's like we get stuck in a loop, replaying the same memories and limiting ourselves to what we already know.
So we have to be willing to let go of the familiar, even if it feels safe and comfortable, in order to open ourselves up to the unknown.
Exactly. And while the unknown can be scary, it's also where the magic happens. It's where we discover new possibilities, new aspects of ourselves. And I think that applies to life in general, not just to meditation.
Yeah, it reminds me of that saying, the only constant is change. But even though we know that intellectually, emotionally, it can be hard to embrace, especially when it comes to letting go of the past.
You know, it's funny you should say that because there's something else from this conversation that really stuck with me. You know how it's easier to remember negative memories than positive ones?
Oh, absolutely.
Dispenza actually has a scientific explanation for that.
I'm curious to hear this.
He explains that our brains are wired to prioritize remembering threats.
Oh, interesting.
It's an evolutionary mechanism designed to protect us.
Like a survival instinct.
Exactly. So those negative experiences, those moments of fear or pain, they just stick with us more intensely.
Which makes sense, but it also feels a little unfair. I know, right?
Right.
Like, why can't we remember those joyful moments with the same clarity?
Exactly.
Well, the good news is, Dispenza says we can actually retrain our brains
Really?
to focus on the positive. It's not about suppressing negative memories, but consciously cultivating gratitude, focusing on the things we appreciate.
So we're creating new neural pathways.
Yes, exactly. So we're not stuck with our default settings.
Yeah.
We can actually choose to change the way our brains process information. But this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Dispenza's research goes beyond just the brain. He talks about shifting our focus from the material world to something he calls the energy field.
Okay, now we're getting into some interesting territory.
Right, and this is where some people might start to raise an eyebrow.
Sure.
But what Dispenza is suggesting, and he has data to back this up, is that when we tap into this field of pure potentiality, we open ourselves up to a realm of possibilities that goes beyond what we traditionally consider possible.
So beyond the realm of what we typically think of as reality.
It's kind of hard to wrap my head around what exactly is this energy field and how do we access it?
Well, he describes it as a realm of pure consciousness, of interconnectedness, where the limitations of time and space as we perceive them, they no longer apply.
Hmm.
He believes we can access this field through deep meditation, letting go of our attachment to our physical bodies, our possessions, even our identities.
It sounds like a pretty big shift in perspective.
It is. It's about connecting to something larger than ourselves, something he refers to as the source of creation.
So we're talking about a major shift here. And I imagine this takes a lot of practice, letting go of old beliefs and limitations.
Absolutely. But what's exciting is that Dispenza's work suggests that we all have this potential within us. We all have the capacity to tap into this energy field to create new realities for ourselves.
It's a powerful idea. And there's actually a physiological component to this as well, right?
There is. He talks about something called heart-brain coherence.
Yes. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
That's where the science gets really fascinating.
I know, right? Dispenza's team has actually measured the effects of a coherent heart rhythm on the brain.
Wow.
What they found is that when our heart rate is steady and rhythmic, it sends calming signals to the brain, which enhances our creativity, our intuition, even our ability to manifest synchronicities in our lives.
So there's actual scientific evidence behind the idea of following your heart.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just feeling good. This heart-brain coherence seems to allow us to access a different level of awareness, a different way of perceiving reality.
So then what happens when a whole group of people achieves this coherence?
Well, according to Dispenza, the energy levels go off the charts.
Wow, seriously?
He even describes instances of spontaneous healing and remote healing, where people in the group were able to focus their intention on someone thousands of miles away, and that person experienced a physical or emotional shift.
That's incredible.
Hmm.
It really makes you wonder about the power of collective consciousness, right? If our individual thoughts and emotions can have such a profound impact, imagine what's possible when we come together with a shared intention, with a shared heart-centered focus.
It's mind-blowing. Let's be realistic, though. Most of us aren't going to be attending one of Dr. Dispenza's workshops anytime soon.
True. So how can we start applying these principles in our own lives in a way that feels practical and manageable?
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? Bridging that gap between these big concepts and our everyday lives.
Right.
And Dispenza does have a program called The Formula, which breaks his teachings down into practical steps.
Right.
But I think even without a formal program, we can start incorporating small changes into our routines.
Like what? Give us something tangible we can try.
Well, you know how Dispenza talked about the power of gratitude? To shift away from negativity?
Yeah.
We can just take a few minutes each day to appreciate the good things. Like even simple things. Like a warm cup of coffee, a nice sunset, a kind word from a friend.
That sounds doable. What else?
Well, remember that heart-brain coherence we talked about?
Yeah.
He emphasizes slowing down our breathing, connecting with our heart center.
Okay.
So we can practice this by taking deep, conscious breaths whenever we feel stressed or overwhelmed. Even just a few moments of focused breathing can make a difference.
So it's like finding those little pockets of peace during the day.
Exactly.
Those moments where we can intentionally shift our energy and find some calm.
Yes, and as we practice these small acts of awareness,
Yeah.
we cultivate a greater sense of presence, of being in the moment.
Right.
And from that place of presence, we can make more conscious choices. choices that align with our values, with what our heart truly desires.
One thing that stood out to me was how much he emphasized letting go of that need to control everything, to predict the future. It's
Hmm.
something I really struggle with, but I see how holding on to that need can block new things from coming in.
Oh, I totally get that. It's a very common struggle.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to our human desire for certainty,
Right.
for security. But like Dispenza says, the unknown isn't something to fear. It's actually a space of infinite potential.
Right.
When we surrender to the flow of life, when we trust that things are unfolding as they should, that's when we open ourselves up to experiences we could never have imagined.
I love that idea. It's beautiful, but it takes a lot of faith, right? Faith in ourselves, faith
Yeah.
in the universe, faith in something bigger than what we understand.
It does, but I think that faith, it can be cultivated.
Okay.
It starts with those small steps,
Yeah.
with those daily practices like we talked about. As we see those positive effects in our lives, those synchronicities and moments of grace, that's when our faith grows. It becomes less about blind belief and more about a deep inner knowing that there's something more at play, something guiding us, supporting us.
I love that. It's about moving from fear and doubt to trust and surrender, recognizing that we're not alone on this journey.
Exactly. And it brings us back to that idea of collective consciousness. If each of us can commit to cultivating more peace and love within ourselves, who knows what kind of ripple effect we can create out there?
It's an inspiring thought to end on, right? That even our small individual actions can contribute to something much bigger, something that has the potential to shift the collective consciousness.
It really is. So as you go about your day, remember what we've talked about today.
Absolutely.
Remember the power of your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions. Choose them wisely, nurture your heart, and trust in the unfolding of your journey.
And maybe together we can create a reality that's a little kinder, a little brighter, a little more aligned with the love and peace that's within each of us.